My half-brother broke down my bedroom door at 3 a.m. and stormed in yelling, "I want this room now!" Half asleep, I could only ask, "What are you talking about?" Because Logan, my half-brother, was there, panting with his fists clenched. He was 17, had been living with us for a few months after my dad married his mother, Sheila. But until then, he had never made a scene like this. My dad came right after him, completely desperate. "Logan, stop it and go back to bed," he pleaded. But Logan ignored him, pushed my dad and started messing with my stuff, throwing everything off the shelves. "This should be mine. He doesn't deserve it." Books flew to the floor. He grabbed my laptop. My dad tried to stop him, but Logan was bigger. He shoved him hard. "Tell him the truth now or I will." My dad turned white as a sheet. At that moment, Sheila appeared in the doorway wearing a robe and a terrified expression. "Logan, please don't do this." We agreed to wait. "Wait for what?" I asked, even more confused and nervous, watching my room destroyed on a random Tuesday night. "I'm done waiting. For 6 months, I've watched him take what should be mine." He kicked my computer chair, sending it crashing into the wall. "You promised me this room when we moved." Sheila was already crying. "It wasn't like that. You're twisting everything." She tried grabbing his arm, but he pulled away. "You said that when everything was settled, things would change." He glared at me with hatred. "You told me he was temporary." My stomach dropped. Temporary? What did that even mean? My dad tried to intervene. "Nobody said that. Logan, leave now." But he laughed. A strange, unhinged laugh. "You told my mom he would go to a military school. That's why I agreed to move here." He pulled some papers from his pocket. "I have the emails right here, all of it." He waved them in the air. Branson Military Academy. Starting in January. His mother showed them to me. I grabbed the papers and saw my dad and Sheila's emails from 3 months ago, discussing sending me to a military school. "Were you really going to send me there?" My dad couldn't even look at me. "We just talked about it, son. It was only a possibility." Logan kicked my dresser. "Stop lying, you already paid the tuition. $20,000 non-refundable." He showed the bank statement on his phone. October 15th, the same day he promised me the bigger room. Sheila sobbed. "We thought it would be better for everyone. You and Logan always argue." Of course it was hard. Logan had always been hostile toward me. Now everything made sense. They were planning to give my room away while shipping me off. Better for everyone. I was always top of my class. Never caused trouble. Logan laughed again. "There it is. That's the problem. The perfect kid only makes me look like a disaster." He ripped my awards off the wall. Chess, honor roll, Eagle Scout. Everything crashed to the floor. My mom said that just by existing, you make me look like a failure. My dad regained a little composure. "We never said that. He's making it up." But Sheila shook her head. "No, Richard, that's true. We did say that Matthew's achievements made Logan feel insecure." She looked at me, trying to sound understanding. "You have so many accomplishments and that affects Logan." Logan was now sitting on my bed like it was his. "See? Even she admits it. You make me look like a failure, so you have to go. This is the best room. Better closet, bigger window, farther from the master. I could even play video games at night." My dad's phone rang. He looked confused. My mom was calling him now. She lived in another state, yet somehow already knew everything. He answered on speaker. "Richard, what is this about a military school?" Her tone was pure fury. "Matthew forwarded me some emails saying you were sending him there behind my back." Logan panicked. "How does she know?" I lifted my phone. The moment I saw the emails, I sent them to her. My mom continued. "You can't decide anything without my signature. That's in the custody agreement." My dad tried to justify himself. "Linda, we were just considering options." But she cut him off. "Options? You paid $20,000. That's not considering, that's deciding." Silence. "I'm leaving right now. I'll be there with my lawyer at 9 a.m. Logan got furious. "That changes nothing. The room will be mine once he goes to college." But I wasn't even a senior yet. I still had 2 years left of high school. "So it's a while, who cares, I'll wait. This room will be mine." That's when Sheila confessed the truth. "It was my idea," she sobbed. Logan jumped up, almost tripping. "Oh, now you're gonna say I'm manipulative? You swore you'd fix everything." His face turned red, his fist clenched again. "You said Matthew was temporary, and I believed you." Sheila tried to restrain him, but he was already heading toward the door. "It's not fair, Logan. We just wanted the best for everyone." But he didn't listen. "Help everyone? You mean help me by getting rid of him?" "Say it, Mom. It was all to please me." Richard tried calming things down. "We wanted to unite the families, that's all." I didn't believe any of it anymore after that disaster. "My mom's lawyer will be here in 6 hours. You explain it to them." Logan punched the wall so hard, he broke through the drywall. A big hole appeared and pieces fell to the floor. He shook his injured hand while Richard stared at the damage in shock. Logan stormed out and slammed the door so hard the whole house shook. Sheila cried non-stop, covering her face. Everything is wrong. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Richard tried to hug her, but she pushed him away. Don't touch me. You promised this would work. I picked up my laptop, checking if it still turned on. The screen was cracked, but it worked. I grabbed my documents, birth certificate, everything important. My hands trembling as I gathered my belongings. Matthew, listen. We can explain, Richard said. But I walked past them without a word. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. The lock was weak, but enough. I sat on the floor with my back against the door, the laptop on my legs. I could hear them whisper fighting outside. This is your fault. You pushed too hard, Richard blamed Sheila. My fault? You agreed to all of it, she snapped back. Their voices faded down the hallway. And now what do we tell Linda's lawyer? They'll destroy us in court. I didn't listen anymore. I checked my phone. Josh was texting, asking why I wasn't online to play. I told him everything that happened. Damn, man, I'm coming over right now. I asked him not to. My mom will be here at 9. I need to stay and see what happens. He sent a bunch of angry emojis. Your dad is insane. Text me if you need anything. I left my phone on the sink. I kept thinking about how it would be when my mom arrived. The cold floor didn't bother me. I didn't want to go back to my room. I heard Richard and Sheila moving around the house. Around 5 a.m., someone banged loudly at the door. Richard ran downstairs and opened it. Is everything all right in there? The yelling woke up half the street. It was the neighbor. Richard tried to sound relaxed. Just a family issue. Everything's fine now. The neighbor didn't buy it. It sounded violent. I called the police about 3 hours ago when I heard the fight. My stomach twisted. The police were on their way. Richard tried to hide his panic. That wasn't necessary. But thanks for checking. They talked more, then the door closed. Richard came upstairs and knocked on the bathroom door. Matthew, the police are coming. You need to come out so things don't get worse. I stayed silent. An hour later, more loud knocks and deep voices. Police. We received a disturbance call. They were let in. I heard them say they needed to talk to everyone separately. I opened the door and stepped out. In the hallway, 2 officers were inspecting the hole in the wall. One was tall and gray-haired, the other younger. Are you Matthew? The older one asked. I nodded and led them to my room, where they saw the ripped door and my things scattered. Can you tell us what happened? He asked. I told them everything, starting with Logan bursting into my room at 3 a.m. The younger officer took notes. He got angry because my father decided to send me to a military school. That way Logan would get my room. They exchanged glances. And where is Logan now? One of them asked. I pointed to the end of the hall toward his bedroom. He made that hole in the wall a while ago. The older officer took pictures of the damage. The door, the hole, the books on the floor, the broken trophies. We'll need to speak with Logan and his parents as well, he said. They went to Logan's room and knocked. He opened the door, trying to seem calm. It was just a normal fight between brothers. Nothing serious, he said. But the officers didn't believe him. A normal fight doesn't end with a broken door and a hole in the wall, the older one replied. They brought Logan into the hallway. He wouldn't even look at me. The younger officer showed him the photos. This constitutes property damage and domestic disturbance. We must file an official report. Richard arrived, frantic. Please, officers. Logan made a mistake, but a formal complaint will harm his future. He's applying for college next year. The older officer responded firmly. That's not our decision, sir. Our job is to record the facts and send them to the court. The rest isn't up to us. He stared straight at Richard. We strongly recommend family counseling. If we're called here again for violence, someone will be arrested. Age doesn't matter. Richard turned pale. The officers finished questioning everyone and left around 7:30. Richard still tried talking to me, but I went back to the bathroom and locked the door again. I heard him and Sheila arguing about what they would tell my mom's lawyer. Around 8:30, I heard a car in the driveway. I looked through the bathroom window and saw my mom getting out of the car with a woman in a suit holding a briefcase. Even after traveling all night, my mom's face was stern, full of rage. I opened the bathroom door and went downstairs. When she saw me, she came straight to me and hugged me tight. Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I shook my head, and she held me even tighter. The woman set the briefcase aside and took out a camera. I'm Veronica Richards, your mother's lawyer. I need to document everything, she said. Richard came downstairs with Sheila right behind him. Veronica didn't waste a second. She began taking pictures of the house before Richard even had a chance to speak. She photographed the hole in the wall, my broken door, everything destroyed in my room, taking notes on her phone while my mother stayed glued to my side. Matthew, tell me exactly what happened, my mother asked. I explained everything from the beginning to the end while Veronica recorded it. When I finished, she looked at Richard. "I want to see all the documents regarding the military school. Everything. Forms, emails, receipts." Richard looked like he was about to complain, but Sheila grabbed his arm. "Give it to her, Richard. There's no point hiding anything anymore," she said. He went to the office and came back with a folder. Veronica spread the papers across the dining table and photographed them one by one. There was the enrollment form for Branson Military Academy with Richard's signature, the receipt for the $20,000 payment dated October 15th, and, at the end, a space for 2 signatures. The parents. Not only had Richard signed his own name, but he had also forged my mother's signature without permission. Her face turned bright red with anger when she saw that. She pointed at the paper with both signatures and told Richard right to his face that this was forgery and completely illegal according to the custody agreement. Richard stepped back, trying to justify that he hadn't really committed forgery because the documents hadn't been submitted yet. Veronica flipped through the folder until she found a calendar page marking the submission deadline in 2 weeks. That made it clear Richard was preparing everything to send it in, pretending it was my mother. She showed him the calendar and explained that simply planning to sign for someone else was as serious as forgery, and that family court judges treat that very seriously when evaluating custody. Richard trembled as he tried to say he only wanted everything ready in case everyone agreed it was the best option. My mother let out a bitter laugh and told him she would never allow me to be sent to a military school just because Logan wanted to take my bedroom. Veronica photographed the calendar and the blank signature lines while my mother kept her arm around my shoulders. Sheila wiped her tears and started talking about how they planned to explain to me all the amazing advantages of a military school. She launched into a speech about leadership and college preparation as if she were reading from a brochure. My mother cut her off immediately, saying no one was going to decide to send me to boarding school without her consent. And that consent would never be given. Veronica reinforced that any attempt to transfer me to another state required both legal guardian signatures. She explained that the divorce agreement specified that major decisions about my education and residence must be made together. Richard insisted that a military school didn't really change my residence because I would come home for holidays. Veronica shook her head, took out her phone, and showed the section of the custody agreement that classified any overnight school as a change of residence. Sheila started crying again, saying they only wanted what was best for the whole family. My mother's voice turned cold as she replied that sending me away just to make Logan comfortable was definitely not best for me, and reminded Sheila that I was also part of this family. Logan reappeared in the room, acting superior as if none of this concerned him. He leaned against the wall and mocked that all this document discussion didn't matter, because soon I'd go to college anyway. In 2 years I would be gone and the room would be his regardless. Something inside me shattered. Hearing him talk about my life like I was just an inconvenience to his comfort, I snapped. I told him right to his face that he was a spoiled, irresponsible brat who always blamed others for his own failures, and that's why he'd never achieve anything of value. I told him my accomplishments weren't the reason he felt bad. If he was failing, it was because of his lack of effort, not because of someone else's success. Logan's arrogant smile vanished instantly. I continued, saying he could have my room, my trophies, everything. But that wouldn't change the fact that the problem was him, not me. Sheila was horrified, saying I had no right to talk like that about her son. But I didn't care anymore. After learning she helped plan to kick me out of the house, none of it mattered. Logan's expression changed completely, his eyes filling with tears. He looked like I had punched him, even though all I did was tell the truth. He turned and ran to his room, slamming the door so hard the house shook again. Sheila glared at me with pure hatred and said I was cruel, that I enjoyed stepping on others. My mother squeezed my shoulder and firmly answered that I had every right to defend myself after being betrayed by my own father. Veronica kept writing in her notebook, focused, as if she were documenting everything for court, without judgment, without emotion. Richard stood there paralyzed, speechless after everything that had come to light. Sheila went after Logan, and we could still hear her trying to comfort him behind the door. My mother hugged me closer and whispered that I had done nothing wrong by putting the truth on the table. Then Veronica closed her notebook, faced Richard, and announced that she would file an emergency custody modification because he had attempted to transfer me without authorization. She added that the unsafe environment created by Logan made it even more urgent. Richard turned pale and wanted to know exactly what that meant. Veronica explained in her calm lawyer tone that such a request could even remove his custody completely, not just stop the military school plan. She also said that the family court judge would analyze everything: the attempted forgery, the aggression in the home, and the fact that he prioritized his new wife's interests over my safety. Richard collapsed onto the couch, pale, saying he never wanted things to go this far, that he thought he was solving a problem. My mother responded that the worst part was him choosing Sheila and Logan over his own son, and that now he would face the legal consequences of that. Veronica reviewed the folder again, wrote down deadlines, and advised Richard to get a lawyer, because the case was going to family court with or without his cooperation. For the next 2 hours, Veronica called each person separately to talk while my mother and I waited in the living room. Sheila went first. Her defensive tone could be heard from the kitchen. Then Veronica went upstairs to talk to Logan. She was up there for nearly half an hour. When she came down, she was holding a recorder and told my mother that she had gotten important confessions from both of them. She revealed that Sheila had admitted the idea of the military school was hers, and that she had been pressuring Richard from the beginning. Logan confessed, recorded, that he only agreed because he was guaranteed he could have my room if I left. Veronica said all of that was solid evidence for a parental alienation case. My mother asked what would happen next, and Veronica explained she would gather all those proofs to request an immediate custody change in family court. According to her, Richard's actions were serious enough that the judge would likely award my mother primary custody at the hearing. Richard heard that from the couch, buried his face in his hands, and remained there, devastated. Sheila came out of the kitchen and asked if they could talk privately without the lawyer, but Veronica was direct. No, everything would now go through the legal process, since Richard had made it clear he could not be trusted to make decisions about my well-being. My mother told me to go upstairs and pack anything important because we were leaving that very day. I went to my room, which was a disaster, and started throwing clothes into suitcases. She came to help, and together we emptied the closet and drawers quickly, trying to finish before the courage faded. Richard appeared in the doorway just watching us pack. He said my name softly, tried to apologize, but I didn't even look at him. I didn't answer a word. My mother warned him that from now on, any conversation would be only with Veronica, so he needed to step away from the doorway. He stood there, looking like a man who had lost everything, while we packed what was left of my life. I grabbed my laptop and the chess trophies that were still intact. My mother wrapped my state champion medal in a t-shirt carefully so it wouldn't bend. We filled 3 suitcases and 4 boxes with everything I couldn't leave behind. Richard tried to say something again, but my mother ignored him. She was protecting me like he never did. As soon as we finished, we took everything downstairs and left it by the front door. Veronica was already there with a stack of papers. She handed them to Richard and explained. They were notices requiring him to appear in family court within 2 weeks. He took the papers with a trembling hand. Veronica also said she had included a protective order request to keep Logan away from me until the hearing. Sheila broke down crying again, saying they were treating her son like a criminal. Veronica was firm. She explained that Logan destroyed property, created a dangerous environment, and therefore the court's protection was necessary. Yes, she told Sheila. Logan made choices, and now he would face the consequences, including staying away from me. Richard asked if all of that was truly necessary. My mother answered without hesitation. It was, especially after Logan destroyed my entire room at 3 a.m. Veronica added that the police report from that night was the basis of the request, and that given what happened, the judge would likely approve it. Sheila buried her face in her hands, crying, saying it was unfair to Logan. I texted Josh asking him to help load everything into the car. 15 minutes later he arrived, his eyes wide at the sight of all the suitcases at the door, but he helped carry everything to my mom's car. While we were putting the things in the trunk, Josh whispered that everyone at school would find out. I told him I didn't care anymore, that it was better to face the truth than live in a home where my own father wanted to get rid of me. Josh said he understood, and that if I needed anything, I could go to his place. We finished unloading everything, and he gave me a quick hug before leaving. My mom thanked him. He said she could call if she needed anything. Richard and Sheila just stood there watching from a distance, leaning against the doorway while we prepared to leave. They didn't try to stop us. Veronica put the folder in her car and said she would follow us to make sure everything went smoothly. It took us more than 3 hours to get to my mom's apartment. On the way, we stopped for breakfast at a restaurant around 11. We sat near the window. Mom ordered coffee and pancakes. I ordered scrambled eggs with toast. She took my hand and said, "As long as it's up to me, you'll stay with me forever." It was such a relief to finally know I wouldn't be going back to their house. Veronica sat with us and ordered only a coffee. Then she spread the papers across the table to clearly explain what would happen in the coming weeks. She said that everything Richard had done gave us an excellent opportunity to ask for custody. She explained that the judge would consider everything from the forged signature plan to the fact that he prioritized his new family over me. My mom wanted to know about the deadlines, and Veronica said that the emergency hearing would be in 2 weeks, but that, given what had happened, the judge would likely grant her primary custody right away. I ate my breakfast while they talked strategy with the lawyer, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone was really on my side, defending me instead of trying to get rid of me. My mom's apartment was in a building near downtown on the 3rd floor, and since the elevator was broken, we had to carry everything up the stairs. She kept apologizing for how small the place was, but I didn't care. There, for the first time since Logan showed up, I felt safe. The guest room was small, only big enough for a bed and a dresser, but my mom reassured me. We would make it work. She hurried to hang my state chess championship certificate on the wall and promised that as soon as she could, she would go get my other trophies. Richard would have to let us retrieve my belongings. Otherwise, Veronica would request contempt, and he would get in trouble with the judge. I unpacked while my mom made the bed with clean lavender-scented sheets. She said, "This is your room now, for real. You can decorate it however you want." The window faced the parking lot instead of the backyard, but I was already so happy just to be able to see the sky. We ordered pizza for dinner and lay on the couch watching an old movie, but we were too tired to pay attention. On Monday morning, I called the school counselor before classes and explained that I urgently needed to transfer schools because of family issues. Amelia asked if I was sure, and I said yes. I now lived with my mom and wouldn't return to the old school. She understood right away and promised to expedite the transfer so I wouldn't miss my senior year. We spent a while on the phone adjusting schedules, and she said she would talk to the counselor at the new school to arrange everything. She asked if I wanted to talk about what had happened, and I said maybe later, when everything calmed down. Amelia said, "My door will always be open for you, even after the transfer. You can call anytime." Richard started calling my mom's phone around noon, but she let every call go straight to voicemail just like Veronica had recommended. We could see the screen lighting up again and again on the counter while we had lunch. In one message, Richard yelled that she couldn't just take me without talking first. In another, he cried, apologized, and suggested that we could talk like adults. My mom put each message on speaker so Veronica could hear it, and after she saved a copy as evidence, she deleted it. Veronica said that after what he had tried to do, Richard had no right to demand anything. During dinner, my phone buzzed with a very long text from Sheila, saying that I had misunderstood everything. She wrote that they only wanted to help Logan feel part of the family, and that sending me to military school wasn't about getting rid of me. She explained that Logan had self-esteem issues, and seeing my achievements every day only made things worse for him. According to her, new opportunities would be better for everyone, and she accused me of being selfish for not trying to see their side. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to Veronica, who responded right away saying that this only proved even more that they cared more about Logan than about my well-being and my rights. Veronica pointed out that Sheila had basically confessed in the message that they were planning to remove me from the house just to improve Logan's self-esteem. On Wednesday, I started at the new school, which was much bigger and had many more people in the hallways. At lunch, the captain of the chess team came to talk to me because she had heard about my state title. Piper had short, dark hair and wore a sweatshirt with a chess knight embroidered on the chest. She said, "We practice every Thursday after school. You have to come." Having something in common and related to my achievements made me feel a little less like my world had exploded 2 days earlier. Piper introduced me to the rest of the team, and they all seemed excited to have someone used to competing. On Thursday night, Josh sent me screenshots of Logan's posts on social media. He was throwing shade about fake relatives who abandon you when life gets complicated. He made several posts talking about betrayal and saying some people only think about themselves. It was clear he wanted to make himself look like the victim in all that chaos. Josh said everyone at the old school already knew and was talking about it, and that most people thought Logan had lost it when he broke down my bedroom door at 3 a.m. I forwarded everything to Veronica, who kept adding those pieces of evidence to the ever-growing file about Logan's behavior and mindset. She said those posts only showed his ongoing hostility and strengthened our request for the restraining order. 2 days before the custody hearing, Richard's brother called my mom asking if we could settle everything outside of court. My mom put the phone on speaker so Veronica could follow the whole conversation. Brock said Richard was drowning in the situation and suggested an agreement without involving the court. Veronica firmly explained that what Richard had done required legal action to guarantee my safety. She said that forging a signature and attempting to remove a minor from the city without permission wasn't something to be resolved in a family chat. Brock went quiet for a moment before admitting that Richard had told him the truth about the military school plan. Sheila had given him an ultimatum. Either he chose her family or me. According to him, Sheila said Logan was miserable with me at home, that something had to change no matter what, or she would leave and take Logan with her. In the end, Richard chose to please his wife instead of protecting his own son. My mom's face turned red with anger when she heard that, and she yelled at Brock that Richard had thrown our relationship in the trash just to please someone else's insecure son. Veronica had to calm her down, reminding her that Brock was helping by revealing all that. He also said that he tried to warn Richard that it was wrong, but it was useless because Richard was terrified of losing Sheila. On the day of the custody hearing, which was a Tuesday morning at the downtown courthouse, we arrived early and found Veronica in the lobby. Soon after, Richard walked in with a lawyer in a suit and a folder full of documents. He walked right past me without even looking as he went to his side of the courtroom. The judge was a woman in her 50s with gray hair tied back, and she came in already looking serious. Richard's lawyer began arguing that a military school would be excellent to develop my character, that young people benefit from discipline and structure, and that Branson Military Academy had an excellent reputation. Veronica countered everything by showing my report cards with top grades in all advanced subjects. She presented my list of sports achievements, including being a starter on the track team and my Eagle Scout certificate. She showed my record with no infractions and asked the judge what kind of character improvement a student like me needed, Someone who excelled at school, helped the community, and never caused trouble. Richard's lawyer was left speechless. The judge then called Logan to testify about what happened that early morning. He showed up neatly dressed, trying to give a serious impression, but his hands were visibly shaking as he sat down. He tried to convince the court that it was just a sibling argument that got out of control. He said he only wanted a better conversation about dividing the bedroom and ended up going too far. Veronica showed the police report with photos of my bedroom door violently torn off. She also showed images of my things thrown all over the floor, the hole he punched in the wall, my broken trophies, and the smashed furniture. The judge looked visibly upset at seeing that evidence of the tantrum and asked him directly whether destroying property and breaking down doors was what he considered a normal conversation. Logan muttered that he was frustrated, and the judge ordered him to speak louder. He admitted he lost control, but justified it by saying that everyone was always on my side. The judge stared at him in silence and then told him to step down. Then it was Sheila's turn, her hands shaking as she clung to the wooden railing. Veronica stood up with the folder of documents and asked why she believed the military school was truly the best option for me. Sheila said she only wanted to help her son not feel inferior to someone as dedicated as I was. She explained how much Logan suffered from low self-esteem and how my achievements made him feel like a failure. Veronica let her talk and then asked if she had ever thought about how it would feel for me to be sent away like that. Sheila stared down at her hands, speechless, and admitted she hadn't thought about how I felt because she was too focused on Logan's problems. The judge leaned forward and asked why, in the end, Logan's problems would justify removing me from my own home and school. Sheila couldn't answer. She only repeated that she thought it would be better for everyone. The judge pressed on, asking in what world taking a good student out of a stable environment could possibly help anyone other than Logan. Sheila began crying again and admitted she had been wrong. Veronica presented the emails in which Sheila told Richard that I made Logan look pathetic just by existing. Sheila tried to justify herself by saying she was merely venting, but Veronica read the messages aloud exactly as they were written. Everyone could hear the truth. The courtroom went silent as it became clear that, to Sheila, I was an obstacle to be removed, not a kid who needed protection. Next, Richard took the stand, looking much more aged than he had just 2 weeks earlier. His lawyer asked him to tell his side of the story, but Richard shook his head and said he had to tell the whole truth. He said Sheila had pressured him for months, always insisting how much Logan suffered at home because he couldn't stand living in my shadow and that something had to change. He admitted that he chose the easiest path instead of dealing with Logan's behavior or setting boundaries with his wife. He said he was terrified of losing Sheila and facing another divorce, which was why he went along with her plan. Veronica asked if he understood that he had failed as a father to me. His voice trembled as he answered yes. He knew that very well. For the first time during the hearing, he looked me in the eyes, apologized while crying, and said he chose his own comfort over my well-being, and that there were no excuses. The judge asked why he never talked to my mom about the military school plan before making the payment. Richard admitted that he knew she would never agree, so he was willing to forge her signature and present everything as already decided. He believed that if he managed to enroll me, everyone would eventually accept it. The judge looked at him with disgust and warned that what he did was considered kidnapping under the state law. The judge called a 15-minute recess to review all the evidence and statements. My mom held my hands and whispered that everything would be fine. Veronica remained confident, but I had a knot of anxiety twisting inside my stomach. When the judge returned, she didn't waste time. She immediately granted my mother full custody, allowing Richard only supervised visits and requiring him to complete a family counseling program. He looked devastated, but did not object or try to change the decision. Sheila stood up in fury, claiming the judge wasn't considering Logan's difficulties. They ordered her to sit down and remain silent, or she would be removed, yet she still stormed out, slamming the door. The judge said Richard's actions proved he couldn't be trusted to make decisions regarding my well-being, and that attempting to move me out of town without the other parent's consent was serious and showed a lack of judgment. She ruled that Richard must complete 6 months of therapy before requesting a new custody evaluation. My mom squeezed my hand tightly, and I felt an enormous relief knowing I wouldn't have to go back to that house. At the end of the hearing, Veronica called Richard's lawyer to the hallway to talk. I peeked through the door while they discussed things for about 20 minutes. When Veronica returned, she said she had managed to negotiate the recovery of the $20,000 from the military school deposit. Richard agreed to put that money in my college fund instead of keeping it or giving it back to Sheila. It didn't fix all the damage he caused, but at least it showed he wanted to make up for something. My mom thanked Veronica and handed her the check for the legal service. Veronica looked at me and said, "You have been very brave in fighting for your rights, and you have every reason to be proud." Richard tried to approach me in the parking lot, but my mom reminded him that from now on he could only speak to me through Veronica, as ordered by the judge. He just waved from afar and left with his head down. For a moment I felt sorry for him, but I quickly remembered he had tried to send me to a military school just to please his spoiled stepson and free up my room. The following month went by quickly as I adapted to my new life with my mom. Her apartment was much smaller than Richard's house, but it was a warm, safe place. I was transferred to the neighborhood's public school, and the counselor helped me catch up with my classes. My mom also enrolled me in therapy with Amelia, who specialized in family trauma and adolescent issues. Amelia was in her 30s, with dark hair and a calm way of speaking that made it easy to open up about difficult topics. In the first session, we worked on how to deal with the feeling of betrayal without letting it affect my trust in people. She explained that Richard's weakness didn't diminish my value as a son, and that his mistakes said everything about his character, not my worth. That helped me understand I had never done anything wrong just by being good at the things I loved. Amelia taught me techniques to manage anxiety and anger when I thought about everything Richard and Sheila had done. She said, "It's normal to feel pain and anger, but you can't let those feelings guide your future relationships." My mom joined some sessions, and we talked a lot about rebuilding our bond after so many years of shared custody. She acknowledged that she should have fought harder for full custody when she saw Richard prioritizing his new family. Josh started spending weekends with me. We played video games or went to the movies as if nothing had changed. He told me Logan had been suspended from school after getting into a fight with a classmate who mocked his family problems. Apparently, Logan got into a fight in the cafeteria and punched a kid because they said his mother tried to erase me from the family. Josh said Logan's temper had gotten worse after failing to take my room and now facing consequences for his aggressive behavior. The school sent him to anger management therapy, but according to Josh, he didn't speak. He walked in silent and left silent, without engaging in anything. I confess, I felt a bit sorry for him because his life seemed to be falling apart. But I quickly remembered the night he tore down my door and destroyed my things. Some people dig their own hole and then get offended when the bill arrives. Josh also shared that Richard had to move out of the big house and into a smaller apartment since he couldn't afford everything without my mom's support. Sheila was furious and blamed Richard for losing the custody case. Their marriage fell apart a few months after all the chaos they caused in my life. Richard started sending letters to my mom's apartment, apologizing and wanting to slowly rebuild some kind of relationship. The first letter was huge, full of details about everything he admitted he had done wrong and how sorry he was. My mom always read the content first, then let me decide whether I wanted to respond, without pressure and respecting my time. I knew I wasn't ready yet. Trust doesn't come back quickly, especially when it was destroyed overnight because of someone else's spoiled child. Amelia told me, "You have no deadline to forgive Richard. Move forward only when you truly feel it's time." She also said that some people apologize just to ease their own conscience, not because they honestly want to fix anything. I kept the letters in a folder, but most of them I didn't even feel like opening. My mom said, "It's okay. If you want to throw them away, you can." Part of me was still curious to understand why he had done all of that, but the truth is, I no longer cared about his excuses. Actions speak louder, and he made it very clear through his decisions what my place was in his priorities. The new school had a super strong chess team, and the captain, Piper, invited me to go to the regional tournament 2 months after I joined. She was a senior, had short, dark hair, and had already won the state title 3 years in a row. When she learned about my achievements, she insisted on inviting me to strengthen the team for the spring season. The tournament was held at a university about an hour away, and my mother took me early on Saturday. I won the first 3 matches without much trouble, and then I faced a tough opponent in the semifinals. It was an intense game, lasting almost 2 hours until I managed to find a way to win. When I secured the victory, my mother cheered louder than everyone there. In that moment, I realized I already had everything I needed, real support, without depending on Richard's approval or his house. I finished in second place and I was very happy, mainly because I had achieved that completely on my own in a new environment. Piper congratulated me and said, "You'll definitely start on the team next year." The trophy stayed on my desk at my mother's apartment, and every time I look at it, I feel proud that I didn't let Richard's betrayal destroy my confidence. 3 months after the change of custody, Brock appeared again, sending messages to my mother. He said that Richard and Sheila had separated because she blamed him for losing the custody case. Apparently, Richard finally stood up for himself after months of therapy, but it was too late to fix things with me. Brock mentioned that Richard had moved to a small studio apartment and was going to therapy 3 times a week. He wanted to know if there was any possibility that I would agree to talk to Richard once supervised visits ended. My mother showed me the message, and I could only say that I still didn't know. Brock sent another message saying that Richard understood he might never regain my trust, but he wanted to at least try. I didn't reply. I needed time to process everything. Amelia said it was healthy for me to go at my own pace, without feeling obligated to reconcile just because Richard was finally taking steps he should have taken long ago. She reminded me that real change takes time and consistency. It's not enough to go to therapy for a few months after being caught doing something terrible. The therapist appointed by the court scheduled the first session for a Tuesday afternoon. My mother took me to the building and waited in the lobby while I went in. The therapist, Dr. Smith, was a woman in her 50s, specializing in custody disputes and family reconciliation. Richard was already there, nervous, sitting in a chair. Dr. Smith explained how the conversations would work, always respectful and without interruptions. She asked Richard to explain why he thought we were there. He cried through most of the story, admitting everything he had done wrong, talking about how he chose Sheila over me and planned to send me to military school without consulting my mother. He admitted that he ran from his responsibilities and chose the easy path, which was not a father's role. Dr. Smith asked what he hoped to achieve with the sessions, and he said he wanted to show that he could be someone better in the future, that maybe he could earn back even a little of my trust. I sat there listening, but I didn't forgive him, because I needed him to understand that some things can't be fixed with tears or apologies alone. Dr. Smith then turned to me and asked what I needed from Richard from now on. I said I needed to see real actions, consistent over time, not just empty promises or emotional moments. I told him that to have any kind of relationship with me, he would have to show over the years that I truly mattered to him. Richard agreed, saying he understood and thought it was fair. At the end of the session, Dr. Smith scheduled weekly conversations for the next 3 months to work on communication and rebuilding trust. A week after therapy started, Logan sent me an unexpected message. It was long, and this time it seemed sincere. Nothing like those cold apologies people give when they just want to sweep things under the rug. He admitted he felt jealous of everything I had achieved since he came into the picture, and that seeing me succeed made him feel awful about himself. He said his therapist was helping him understand that trying to tear me down wouldn't improve anything, and that his anger came from his own insecurities, not from anything I had done. He wrote that he was taking therapy seriously, going twice a week, and trying to understand where that urge to bring others down came from. The apology seemed sincere, but to me it didn't make a difference. The damage was already too great. I took a screenshot of the message and showed it to my mother, who read it calmly and then asked what I wanted to do about it. I said it was good that Logan was getting help, but I had no interest in staying in touch with him. Not now and not in the future. She agreed and said that was completely fair, that I didn't owe Logan anything just because he finally saw the seriousness of what he did. I deleted the message without replying, because he needed to understand that a simple sorry doesn't erase everything, and that there are bridges that, once burned, are gone forever. At the next session, Amelia said that my decision to stay away from Logan was an example of setting healthy boundaries and showed that I knew my own worth. 2 weeks later, Richard asked, through the supervised visits coordinator, if I would agree to have monthly dinners once the supervised visits ended in 3 months. She passed on the request during one of our meetings and explained that Richard wanted to slowly rebuild the relationship, if I accepted. I said I needed time to think and that I wanted to talk to my mom and Amelia first. That night, I told my mom about it during dinner. She listened to everything carefully while I explained Richard's proposal. She made it clear that the decision was entirely mine and that she would support any path I chose, even cutting ties permanently if that was what I wanted. The next day, I talked to Amelia about what those dinners would mean and the boundaries I would need to set. She helped me see that I could try reconnecting, but without any obligation to forgive everything or pretend that everything was okay. After a week of thinking, I gave my answer to the coordinator. I agreed to try the monthly dinners once the supervised visits ended. I asked her to make it clear to Richard that trust doesn't rebuild quickly. It takes years, and that he would need to show through actions over time that he really valued me. She told me later that Richard cried when he heard my message and said he understood the conditions. My first report card from new school came in November, and I got straight A's as always. I made the honor roll again, and that made me feel incredible because it proved that all of Richard's talk about military school was nonsense. I was doing much better away from his house, his rules, and that new family that only dragged me down. My mother picked up my report card at the school office, came home hugging me tight, and said she was very proud of who I was and who I was becoming. She even had the report card framed in a special gold frame and hung it in the living room above the couch. Every time I saw that frame, I felt a huge sense of pride because it showed I could shine anywhere as long as I had people who truly cheered for me by my side. When Piper saw my name on the honor roll, she congratulated me and said I was helping the chess team a lot. Other classmates started asking me for study tips, and that was when I realized I had built a new circle. People who celebrated achievements instead of feeling jealous. One Saturday in December, Josh called with news about Richard that I wasn't expecting. He said Richard had decided to sell the house. It had become too big and full of bad memories after Sheila left following the separation. According to Josh, Richard moved into a small apartment on the other side of town and was now going to therapy 3 times a week, not just the sessions required by the court. He said Richard looked different, thinner, older, like guilt was eating him alive day after day. Josh also said that Richard always asked about me and kept a picture of us from before the marriage on his apartment wall. I listened to everything, but I didn't feel anything, because his suffering didn't change what he had done. The fact that he was finally taking action was good, but it didn't erase the betrayal or repair the damage. I thanked Josh for keeping me informed and said I admired how he managed to stay neutral amid so much chaos. Josh replied, "I'll always be your friend, no matter what happens between you and Richard." And that meant more to me than he realized. 6 months after everything collapsed that night in my room, I had dinner with Richard for the first time at a restaurant downtown. My mother drove me there, stayed waiting in the car with a book, just in case I wanted to leave earlier than planned. I walked in and saw Richard already sitting in a corner, visibly nervous and looking older than I remembered. He stood up when he saw me. It looked like he wanted to hug me, but I just sat down on the other side of the table across from him. The first few minutes were pure discomfort, pretending to read the menu and trying to talk about anything. I decided to stop and really tell him, without sugarcoating, how his betrayal had affected me, how it destroyed my trust and made me doubt even the happy memories. I said that knowing he had planned to send me away without even talking to me made me feel disposable, as if I were a problem he wanted to get rid of. He listened in silence, with tears falling while I spoke. And when I finished, he didn't try to justify himself or minimize anything. He just stayed there crying and nodding, saying, "I heard everything you said, and I understand why you feel this way." Our dinner lasted about 2 hours. Enough time to talk about everything. The military school plan, the ruined marriage, Sheila, the legal fight that changed our lives. Before leaving the restaurant, Richard told me with a heavy voice, I was a coward. When it mattered most, I chose the easy way out instead of protecting my child. He also said he knew he might never fully regain my trust and that he would have to live with that for the rest of his life. I was direct. I confirmed that was exactly how it was, that I wasn't going to pretend just to make him feel better. I told him I was willing to see if he could change from now on, but that our relationship would never go back to what it was before everything collapsed. Richard accepted that and thanked me for at least giving him that chance. We decided to schedule another meeting in a month to see how things would go until then. When I got back to my mom's car, she wanted to know how it went, and I only said, it was awful and painful, but maybe it was necessary. On the way home, we made sure to stop for ice cream, because we both needed a bit of sweetness after such a heavy day. The sessions with Amelia continued throughout the winter, and she helped me face layer after layer of anger I didn't even know existed inside me. There was a session in January when I couldn't hold it in and truly cried, admitting that I was happier living with my mother full-time than I had been for years in Richard's house. Amelia encouraged me to explore that feeling, and I realized that what I always needed was exactly what my mother was giving me: stability and unconditional support. The truth is that long before the whole military school mess, it was already clear that the environment in Richard's house had become unbearable. Sheila constantly comparing Logan and me, and that tension floating in every corner. Amelia helped me understand that acknowledging I was better this way didn't make me a bad person, nor did it mean I was satisfied with everything that had happened. She said, sometimes the worst situations end up opening paths we would never have found otherwise. I started dividing my life into before and after, as if that confrontation at dawn had been the turning point between who I was and who I was becoming. In February, a new student arrived at school. His parents were going through one of those really messy divorces, and Piper asked me if I would talk to him about family court issues. I had lunch with the boy, Felipe, and shared everything I had learned about defending yourself and understanding your own rights when parents ignore your opinion in important decisions. He listened carefully, took notes on his phone, and I explained how custody agreements work and what happens when one parent violates a court order. I gave him the contact information of Veronica, my mother's lawyer, and told him that having someone who truly defends you changes everything in a case like that. Over the following weeks, I ended up helping 3 other classmates going through similar situations, and I heard Piper tell me, "You're really good at this, you know?" That sentence stuck in my head, because helping other teenagers gave me a sense of purpose that neither chess nor good grades had ever given me. I mentioned it to my mom, and she got all emotional. I can totally see you as a lawyer, defending kids who need someone on their side. Richard continued attending our monthly meetings through the spring, and little by little he began to show that he was truly trying to change. Each dinner was less awkward than the one before, and eventually our conversations really flowed. They were no longer just painful outbursts or apologies. He told me about his progress in therapy, the things he was discovering about himself, and I updated him about school, chess, and my new friends. I kept my boundaries very clear about what I could or could not accept, making it perfectly explicit that any lie or attempt at manipulation would end the reconciliation without discussion. Richard respected that and understood that now it was on my terms, not his. My mother always supported contact at the pace I chose, never pressuring me to forgive before I was ready. She would always say, healing runs on its own time, and no one has the right to rush it just to escape discomfort. By April, our dinners already looked like genuine rebuilding, not just obligation. When senior year ended, I saw myself flourishing in a way I couldn't have imagined months earlier. My grades stayed flawless. I made the honor roll again and proved to myself that I could stand out anywhere. I won 3 more chess tournaments, including a regional competition that qualified me for the state finals. My friend group grew. Besides Josh, I had become close to Piper, the chess team, and the classmates I helped with family court issues. My mother's apartment became a real home. In a way Richard's house never was, with stability, safety, and that unconditional support I always longed for. I no longer feared being kicked out or hurting someone just for being who I am. Richard's betrayal made me see that I was strong enough to protect myself, even when the person who should have cared for me failed badly. I learned that true family is the people who choose you every day, not only when it's convenient or when your presence doesn't bother their other relationships. I discovered that it's possible to survive your own world falling apart and come out even stronger on the other side. And most importantly, today I know that my worth doesn't depend on others recognizing it, and no one can take away what I've earned through my effort and determination. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below what you thought. Your support makes all the difference. See you in the next video.